In this lesson, we're going to look at how to use list comprehensions with files. And this will provide an even more graphic example of how list comprehensions can save you coding time over doing it the traditional way. So let's start a new program. We'll call this listcomp2.py. So what we want to do is we want to open a file of numbers that are stored in a text file, in this case grades. And then we want to be able to store them in a list so that we can perform some sort of task on them in memory. So the way that we would do that traditionally would be the first thing we would do is open the file, assign it to a file object, and then perhaps we might read it in to a list using the readLines function off the file object. Then notice what happens when we read in the grades. Each grade has a new line character attached to it, again because we stored the grades initially as a text file, so they're stored as strings. So what we need to do is we need to strip those new line characters off. So the way we're going to do that, again doing it traditionally, is to access each element in the list and strip that character off the end using the rstrip function. And so when we're finished, we should then have the grades saved without the new line character. Let's take a look. Let's run it again, and sure enough, it works. But to perform that complete task took 6 lines if you count the 2 print statements. 4 lines taking off the 2 print statements, or print function calls. So we can do that easier with a list comprehension. So let me demonstrate how to do that. First, let's comment out all these other lines. So to do it with a list comprehension, we're going to say grades equal. And because a file is just another sequence of data, we can access it with a for loop, and we did this in the previous chapter, just as if it was a list, for example. So in one line, in one expression, we can open the file, read the grades in, strip off the trailing new line, store it in our list. Then to show how it works, we can print the grades in the list. So let's save that. Go back to our command prompt, clear the screen, and run the program. And there we go. So this was a simple example of how to write a list comprehension with a file. In the exercise that follows, I'll provide you with a little more advanced or complex example. But here I wanted to show you just very dramatically, well, sort of dramatically, how a list comprehension can be used with a file and again, save you quite a bit of coding. And with that, we're ready to move on to the exercise for this short chapter, where I'm going to show you a more complex example of using a list comprehension with a file.